You ever notice how people think the worst sound in an emergency is the siren, that high cold scream cutting through your Sunday like a knife? But if you do this for a living, if you've stood under hospital fluorescence at 3 a.m. watching time bleed out of somebody, you know the siren isn't the scary part. It's the silence after that little pocket of nothing when the wheels stop and your heart starts counting. So I'm out back flipping burgers in Silver Briar, the kind of subdivision where even the squirrels look HOA approved, and the ambulance blasts down our street like a bullet with regrets, and I don't even flinch because in my line of work, the dinner bell rings loud and often, but then it cuts out mid-block. And what fills the air isn't the rush of life-saving, it's a voice nasal and righteous, a voice I'd recognize in my sleep. And I set the tongs down because, yeah, that happened and I already know whose stand. I round my hedges meticulously trimmed to regulation height, thank you very much. And there it is, two medics with the stretcher half sprung, frozen like mannequins and planted between them and the front door, like a beige checkpoint. Is Marjorie Kent, president of the Silverbriar Homeowners Association. Pink polo khaki capris tablet held up like a holy relic. Lips pursed the way people purse them when they think authority means never having tea. "You are not to cross this lawn," she declares, broadcasting to the whole cul-de-sac. Section 4, paragraph B, all foot traffic confined to designated paved pathways. Please respect. The lead medic neck like a tree trunk. Eyes like a man who's seen the inside of too many bad days, says tight but calm. "Ma'am, 78-year-old male, severe chest pain. We need to move now." And Marjorie doesn't budge, doesn't blink, just gestures toward the decorative flagstone path that winds like a lazy river around a rock. I look. Something inside me doesn't snap so much as it vaporizes like a fuse going to light. And I don't argue with Marjorie, because arguing with Marjorie is like bargaining with an answering machine. I just jog straight to the medic's point down my side gate. Forget her cut through my fence. The parkway runs behind the yards. You'll hit Maple Avenue in 30 seconds. I'll wave you through and they don't even hesitate. Because pros recognize pros, and off we go. Legs pumping, lungs burning, wood slats rattling. As I shoulder the gate open, and at the end of that uneven strip of crabgrass and city drainage, they load Mr. Whitaker, lifelong silver-haired gentleman who hands out full-size candy bars at Halloween, and peel out toward the cath lab that'll keep it. The ambulance chirps goodbye, and the street goes quiet again, like the neighborhood held its breath and decided not to exhale. And I turn back toward home, toward the smell of my abandoned grill, and there she is, Marjorie, still at her post, guarding untouched fescue like it's the last green patch on earth. She points at me with a trembling manicured finger and says, "You have facilitated unauthorized commercial foot traffic across your property, sir. This will be a significant fine." I don't yell. I slip into that calm, clinical voice you use when the truth is too heavy to carry and you need every word to do its work. "Marjorie," I say, when someone's heart artery is clotted 90 seconds, costs muscle that doesn't grow back. That's a life you were weighing against a blade of grass. She blinks like I spoke in another language, murmurs something about systems collapsing. And that's when I understand. I'm not talking to a person. I'm talking to a rule in human skin. And rules like that don't bend. They break you, or they break everything around you trying. Let me back up a sec, because this all really started with a gnome. I dragged myself home one Tuesday after a shift that could have been an episode of Bad Ideas Meet Household Tools. And stuck to my door is a neon violation, section 7.3a. Unaligned decorative lawn ornament must be relocated 3 inches to comply, and the ornament is Barnaby, a fishing gnome my daughter painted for Father's Day. The kind of ugly cute that makes your chest ache, and the note says 3 inches, like those inches hold civilization together. Sarah, my wife, a landscape architect with soil under her nails and a soft spot for anything that grows wild, touches my arm. "Just move it." Leo and I do tape measure and all, while 2 houses down, Marjorie watches from the window with a smile that says she just saved property values by personally throttling whimsy. I knew then we were on a collision course. I just didn't know the vehicle would be an ambulance. That night, after the barbecue smoke drifted away and the house went quiet, the way houses do before they decide whether they're safe, the hospital calls. Just in time, Dr. Maxwell. We opened him up. Widowmaker, another few minutes, and relief slams into me so hard I have to sit on the stairs, but the relief curdles turns into something colder, a decision with edges. I stand, look at the blank sidewall of my garage, the one that faces the public sidewalk and Maple, and I say to Sarah out loud, because saying things out loud makes them brave. If she won't let life in, I'll build life a way out. I'm putting in a door, a big one. Sarah lowers her book, watches my eyes the way you watch storm clouds, wary but weirdly relieved. A door, she says, or a statement, and I grin in a way that probably isn't comforting both. 3 days of coffee and covenant archaeology later, I've got every page of Silverbrier's bylaws buttered with sticky notes, and on page 241, or maybe it was 247. I'd started seeing numbers like hallucinations by then. I hit pay dirt. No structural modification visible from community-owned property without prior aesthetic committee approval. Not city property. Not public right-of-way community-owned. My garage wall faces Maple, which belongs to the city, which belongs to all of us. Jurisdiction ends at my lot line like a bad idea ends at a fact. I may have whooped. Sarah may have dropped her tea. Barnaby the gnome may have nodded his ceramic approval, who's to say? Next morning I start assembling a team because spite is fun, but strategy gets things built. First up muscle. 3 corporate contractors listen to my plan and suddenly remember they have hair washing emergencies. And then I find a text-only ad in a local forum. Gus O'Connell Carpentry. No job too weird, no HOA too scary. And I call, and a voice like gravel says, "What are we cutting and who's mad about it?" Gus shows up in a dented pickup beard like a national forest, forearms tattooed with eagles and bad decisions, and I walk him through the whole saga, the gnome, the bylaw recital, the sprint through the parkway, and I unfurl my sketch, a 10-foot roll-up commercial grade, fire engine red, because I'm not subtle, and I'm done pretending to be, and he listens, eyes twinkling, then slaps my back so hard I taste yesterday. "Son," he says, "this ain't construction. This is art with consequences. When do we start?" Second recruit brains sharpen to a point. I don't need the firm that closed on our mortgage. I need a shark who eats paper for breakfast. So I book a consult with Ava. Wren HOA litigator, black suit, silver pen, website testimonials that read like war stories. Ava sits, steeples her fingers, lets me talk. And when I get to the clause about community-owned property, her mouth does this little half-smile predators do when the gazelle trips. "You're not asking permission," she says. "You're building a fact and daring them to misinterpret it." And I nod, and she names a retainer that could buy a small boat, and I write the check, thinking of Marjorie grinning at my daughter's gnome, and I feel nothing but relief. We file the application downtown as lateral access utility door for equipment storage, which is true enough not to be a lie and boring enough to be unmemorable. And we submit nothing to the HOA. Because if there's one thing I know about rule-drunk committees, it's that they'll stall a sunrise if you let them vote on it. 4 days later, the city permit goes up bright orange in our front window, like a sunrise in a dare. And within an hour, the digital air raid siren sounds across Silverbriar, emergency, unauthorized major construction at Lot 12. Marjorie's email screams in bold and italics words like defacing integrity, property values, marching like little soldiers across the screen. 2 days after that, a cream envelope arrives from a law office with so many surnames it reads like a family reunion. Cease and desist. Lots of herewiths and wherefores, and a threat to lien our home spelled like lean, which Ava delights in highlighting. They can't even spell the tool they want to hurt you with, she says, how quaint. Do nothing, Ava tells me. Let Gus make music. I'll educate their council. At 8 sharp the next morning, Silverbriar discovers what a two-stroke concrete saw sounds like in a neighborhood where the loudest daily event used to be a Labrador sneezing Gus in goggles, and a grin draws the first line through stucco and pride, and we're off to the races. Marjorie establishes a command post lawn chair at her property line iPad, up recording every swing like she's Spielberg of small-mindedness, and at 8:01 a.m., the non-emergency line calls me. We've received a noise complaint from a Ms. Kent, and by day 3, the dispatcher just sighs. Morning, Doc, same caller, and I pour them all one imaginary coffee and keep the work legal and loud. Then come the sprinklers conveniently timed soakings whenever Gus's crew works near the line, and Gus just stands there drenched and gives the camera a thumbs up, which infuriates her in a way only cheerful defiance can. Next morning, we set up 2 rental floodlights, not for illumination, but for petty physics. Bounce enough lumens off beige stucco, and you can wash an iPad sensor blind, and Marjorie retreats to the shade, muttering about harassment, while her footage turns into a white rectangle of righteous nothing. She plants shrubs, a fast-growing scraggly hedge of "get out of my sight" right at the edge of our planned curb cut. And Gus squints, grins. Leyland cypress, invasive roots, city prohibits within 10 feet of a foundation, and I'm already dialing Ava while he's still saying roots. Ava fires off an email with ordinance numbers, and the casual phrase potential liability, and the hedge disappears overnight like a bad idea sobered up. By week 2, the police swing by so often we consider putting them on the Christmas card list. Officer Alvarez is new earnest, trying not to laugh. Sergeant Boone is older eyes that say he's seen real chaos and this isn't it. Keep it inside code, Boone tells me quietly, and try not to give her fresh ammunition. My ulcer thanks you. And then lower whole stations taking bets on what she calls in next. I've got 20 on unauthorized ladder color. Twist you didn't see coming. I didn't either. Day 3 of floodlights. A woman I've never spoken to drops by with a Tupperware of cookies, says her name is Priya Patel House at the corner city planner, off the clock, but not off her sense of humor. And she tips me to a tiny clause in the municipal code about secondary egress for residential lots abutting public thoroughfares. If somebody tries to play jurisdiction games, she says this footnote is your parachute, and I tuck that away like a spare heartbeat. We've got allies I didn't know we had. 5 weeks of noise and dust later, the whole is framed. The track goes in the springs, hum, and then it happens. The door rolls up, heavy steel red, so bright it looks like it can think. Emergency access, lot 12, stenciled clean above curb, painted a loud, lawful yellow, a little piece of uncompromising sanity planted in a field of taupe. It's ridiculous. It's perfect. It's ours. We throw a cookout because what else do you do when you birth a symbol neighbors wander over with folding chairs and curiosity? Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker arrive to applause. Mr. Whitaker squeezes my hands and says, voice thick, "You acted when someone else hid behind a sentence, and I do my best not to cry into the coleslaw." Ava shows with a bottle of champagne that could pay a utility bill, clinks glasses with Gus, says, to facts on the ground, and for a minute the neighborhood feels like a small town again, like people instead of policy. And then the beige sedan mounts the curb. She doesn't idle, doesn't hover, she parks perpendicular across my brand new apron, so tight it kisses. Paint. Climbs out calm as an executioner locks the car with a chirp that sounds smug, I swear it does, and faces a backyard full of witnesses. This structure is illegal, Marjorie says evenly. I will not allow it to stand. Silence drops so hard you can hear the grill hiss, and that is exactly when fate decides to audition slapstick little Noah Boone, 7 years old, fresh off a dare at the swing set, launches too high and biffs the landing, 2-inch forehead cut that bleeds like Niagara, but isn't the end of the world. His mom screaming me already, moving hands, gentle voice, calmer than I feel. It looks scary, buddy, but it's neat and clean. You'll get a couple stitches and a story. I glance at the garage where my car sits like a patient behind a curtain, and I look at the sedan blocking the only fast path, and I raise my voice just enough. Well, this is inconvenient. Anyone know a tow company with a sense of humor? The crowd murmurs the absurdity writes itself a child needs a ride, and the guardian of order has turned herself into a barricade. Mr. Whitaker steps forward slower than before but steady, and the yard parts for him like we're in church, and he stops a few feet from Marjorie, not angry, just sad in a way that makes your bones quiet. "Marjorie," he says, "I am breathing because that man did what you wouldn't. This boy is hurt and scared. Will you stand in the way of that too?" It unspools her. The mask slips, then shatters, and out comes the raw thing underneath. 12 years of measuring, approving, frowning her identity, wrapped so tight around the rules that she can't tell where they end, and she starts, "No one respects the system." She cries, "No one respects me." And the words hang there like something fragile and ugly, and for a second I almost pity her because loneliness in beige is still loneliness, but pity doesn't protect kids or hearts. And Sergeant Boone steps in with that tired mercy cops get after 10,000 stupid calls and a handful of true ones, ma'am. Move your vehicle now, and she does, shaking, and drives away like a ghost looking for a house to haunt. The party winds down, quiet. None of us hungry for celebration anymore, and the next Tuesday the clubhouse fills like it's never filled, folding chairs crammed with residents who look like they're finally ready to be adults about where they live. Ava sits beside me, calm as a winter lake waits for the room to wear itself out, then stands clean blazer, cleaner voice, and walks the board through a story with exhibits. The medic report noting obstructed access. The city permit stamped and blessed. The invasive shrub ordinance. The photo of a beige sedan blocking a curb painted yellow. That might as well be neon. And she ends, not with vengeance, but with a sentence so sharp it feels like relief. My client is not here for forgiveness. He is here for your apology and your plan to make sure his door is never needed because of your inaction again. A petition moves. Signatures fall like dominoes. The vote recalls Marjorie with the kind of majority that makes denial look silly. A teacher named Helen Carter, who cares more about pool filters than power, takes the gavel. And the first motion she reads is a draft Ava and I wrote over coffee called the Silver Briar Emergency Access Protocol. Plain language for plain common sense. In any verified medical fire or police emergency, all HOA bylaws regarding property access, landscaping, and pathways are immediately suspended, and it passes like a fever breaking. 6 months slide by and the neighborhood exhales into a new shape. Still neat, still tidy, but real around the edges. A kid's chalk dragon on a sidewalk. A front door painted a cheerful blue. No one could find in the approved pallet packet. Barnaby the gnome perched a proud inch off center, like he's daring anyone to measure him again. People nod at each other longer in the mornings. They wave before they email. The air feels less like a rule book and more like a street. We hear Marjorie sold and moved to a condo across town where the HOA meetings are rumored to require a quorum for the lunch order. Maybe she wanted a place where the rules were bigger than the people. Maybe she needed to start over in a smaller mirror, and the folks who buy her house show up with a moving truck full of practical things and scrubs in the back seat. He's a paramedic, she's an ER nurse, and Sarah tells me later the realtor pitched our place as the fastest emergency access in the county. And I laugh so hard I have to lean on the red door to catch my breath. One late afternoon, the kind that paints everything gold and makes you forgive your own rough edges. Sarah comes into the garage with 2 cold beers. We clink stand shoulder to shoulder, watching kids course down the street like schools of bright fish. And the door is rolled up the big red rectangle framing the world like a movie you suddenly get to direct. She nudges me with her shoulder. You realize we built a landmark out of spite, and I smile. Spite gets a bad rap. Sometimes it's just moral clarity with steel springs. We go quiet the way couples do when the talk's been good enough, and I think about the siren, about the silence after, about how rules are supposed to catch you, not trap you. and how sometimes the only way to fix a system that forgot people is to make something undeniable, a door, a path, a story, and then to leave it open so nobody forgets again. And here's the last image I'll leave you with, cinematic if you like. Evening joggers drifting by the sky, doing that purple-orange thing. It saves for nice neighborhoods and second chances. My red door rolled up like a grin. Sarah's hand warm at my back, and a new kid on a new bike wobbles past, glances over, lifts a hand and says, "Cool. Fire station, mister." And I laugh deep and easy because he's not wrong and because this is what it was all for, not to win against a person in khakis, but to win back a place for people. So, when rules stop serving people and start serving themselves, when they become shields for pride instead of tools for safety, do you salute and step in line, or do you step sideways and build a better path? You know what I mean? I made my choice with concrete and paint and a contractor who calls art anything that makes a racket and helps somebody, and if I had to do it again, I'd do it faster, louder, and with a cooler playlist. Yeah, that happened. Your move.